In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the relationship between the special angles that are formed when a transversal intersects not just two lines, but parallel lines. So if a transversal intersects parallel lines, then the special angles that are the special angle pairs that are formed, they're all going to either be congruent or they will be supplementary. So starting with corresponding angles, if a transversal intersects parallel lines, then the corresponding angles will be congruent. The alternate interior angles will be also congruent. Alternate exterior angles will be congruent. And the consecutive interior angles will be supplementary, so they will add up to 180. Vertical angles are always congruent. And the adjacent angles in this figure, whenever a transversal intersects parallel lines, all the angles that are next to each other, the adjacent angles, will always be supplementary. All right, so in this first example, we are told that lines A and B are parallel and lines P and Q are also parallel. It's given that the measure of angle 1 is 3x plus 40, the measure of angle 3 is 2x plus 70. Angles 1 and 3 are corresponding angles. So since the lines that transversal the transversal is P, so since lines A and B are parallel, then that means that angles 1 and 3 are congruent. So we're going to set those two expressions equal to each other and solve for x. Subtract 2x from both sides, it will give us x on the left side. Subtract 40 from both sides, and we'll get 30 on the right side. So x would equal 30. And using the same figure, angle 2 and angle 4, well, angle 2 is going to be the same as the angle that's adjacent to angle 4, because the angle that's adjacent to angle 4 in that bottom right corner, they're corresponding angles. So that would mean that angle 3 and angle 2, they're going to be congruent because they're, if you indicate the angle next to that angle 4, they would be alternate exterior angles. And since those lines P and Q are parallel, the alternate exterior angles are congruent. So we want to set those two equations equal to each other. The two expressions equal to each other. Subtract 4x from both sides to get x on the right side. Add 13 to both sides to get x on the left side. So x equals 20. All right, next. Now we're given an expression for angles 5 and 6. Angles 5 and 6 are alternate exterior angles. Again, since lines A and B are parallel, those alternate exterior angles are going to be 5, 6, and 7. All right, so first thing we want to do is find x by setting 5 and 7 equal to each other, since those are corresponding angles. So since 5 and 7 are corresponding angles, we can set those two expressions equal to each other. Subtract x from both sides to get x on the left side. Add 10 to both sides to get 25 on the right side. Now that we know that x is equal to 25, I can plug that value of x into the expression for angle 5. So that'll give me 2 times 25 minus 10, and then set that equal to the measure of angle 6, since those two angles are alternate exterior angles. So alternate exterior angles are congruent if the transversal is intersecting parallel lines. So 2 times 25 is 50. 50 minus 10 is 40. Divide both sides by 4, and we get 10 on the left side. And then add 25 to both sides. Y is going to equal 35. All right, for this example, we want to solve for x and y. So we should start by using the two expressions that have the same variable in them. That would be the 10x plus 14 and the 12x. Those two angles are alternate interior angles, so they're congruent. They're congruent because the two lines that have one arrow on them indicate that they are parallel. So we set those two expressions equal to each other. Subtract 10x from both sides, and we get 14 equals 2x. Divide both sides by 2, and x equals 7. So now we can plug x into either one of those expressions. I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the 12x expression. And the 6y plus 18 angle and the 12x angle, they form a linear pair. They're adjacent to each other, so they add up to 180. So when I plug in 7 for the x and 12x, I get 12 times 7, and then plus 18 is going to give me 102. Then subtract 102 from both sides to get 6y equals 78. Divide both sides by 6, and y is going to equal 13. In this example, we want to again solve for x first, since we have two expressions with x's in them. And if I was to, the angle that's adjacent to the 9x plus 12, that's the same as the angle measured for the 3x angle. So if I just move that up, then I would have two adjacent angles that form a linear pair. So 9x plus 12 plus 3x is going to equal 180, since those two angles are supplementary. 3x and 9x is 12x. Subtract 12 from both sides, and then divide both sides by 12 to get x equals 14. And then the 3x angle and 4y minus 10 angle, those two angles are supplementary. So I'm going to plug in 14 for the x in the 3x expression, add those two angles up, and set them equal to 180. 3 times 14 is 42. Then 42 minus 10 is 32. Subtract 32 from both sides, we get 4y equals 148. Divide both sides by 4, and y equals 37. Here we want to solve for the measure of angle 1. So what we want to do is right there through the parallel to the two parallel lines, we want to draw another line that's parallel to the two drawn parallel lines, going right through the vertex of angle 1. So it should look like this. And now the angle just above it, that angle must be 60 degrees because those two angles are alternate interior angles. For the same reason, the angle just below that 60-degree angle must be 65 because those two angles are alternate interior angles. So the measure of angle 1 is just going to be 60 plus 65, or 125. Let's try that again. Again, draw a parallel line to the drawn two parallel lines through the vertex of angle 2. And the angle just above the vertex should be 62, since those two angles are alternate interior angles. And the alternate interior angles will be congruent. The angle below that 62-degree angle is going to be supplementary to the 144-degree angle. So to find that angle measure, we want to subtract 144 from 180, and that angle measure is going to be 36. So angle 2 is going to be the sum of those two angles, 62 and 36. It's going to equal 98.